Welcome back to the show. Respectfully Inspired. Today, I'm here with James Varela. He is a serial world traveler, a creative entrepreneur, videographer. He does everything from surf videography to drone videography to camera photography, concert photography, pretty much extreme sports, anything you can think of, dude. You do a lot.
Yep, I'm a man of many different fields, I guess.
Yeah, when I said a similar intro for the Mateo podcast, and he was like, I'm not a serial world traveler.
I mean, I try to be, but
I think you are, though, bro. It seems like you've been traveling even before you were, like,
yeah,
money.
yeah, I kind of have ever since I was younger. I mean, just because of, like, my parents. My parents have kind of always been about that, and whenever I can, I do, but it's a little bit expensive sometimes, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, not too much lately, but I try to as much as I can.
I like to start off every episode with my why behind the podcast, which is that I want to change the way people measure success. So most people measure success by money, status, views, possessions, and the goal of my podcast is to change the way people measure success to relationships and memories, which I call soul wealth metrics. So you have the wealth metrics over here, the soul wealth metrics over here. That's the goal of my podcast. And I think it's actually a great place to start because I know that you've had many captions where you say, like, traveling is greater than money, friends is greater than money.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on that, like, idea a bit?
Yeah, so, I mean, I might have, like, a lot of cool things that I'm doing all the time, but I do pretty much everything, like, travel-wise. I do it the cheapest way that I possibly can because... I mean, it might look like I do a lot of travel and I work with, like, really cool clients, but by no means does that mean that I'm, like, rich.
Yeah.
That probably means that I'm less rich, if anything, because I spend so much money doing that. But yeah, it's just, like, I don't really care about, like, physical wealth. I never really have.
Yeah.
It's more just, like, relationships and experiences that kind of matter to me.
Bro, that's such, like, a hard statement because I try to live the exact same way. Be like, it's literally my brand now. So, to tell people to not measure success by the views, I think a lot of it in terms of, like, online metrics, so views, likes, streams. Because for me, I had done YouTube for 5 years and I still have less than 1,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
And so it's very easy to be like, I'm not a YouTuber because I don't make a living off of it.
Yeah.
And do it, but my whole, like, past 5 years of my life have been dedicated to it. So I'm like, I'm not going to, like, take that away from myself.
Yeah, that's amazing because, I mean, I'm kind of in a similar boat where I've been doing this for nearly 12 years now.
12 years?
Yeah, so I mean, going back to where, like, I originally started, I picked up my parents' camera when I was 10 years old, and I basically haven't put it down since. Like, I mean, like, there's been different times where I've grown more than others, but it's just like I picked it up when I was 10 years old, and I'm still doing it, and I have, like, almost 4,000 followers or something now, which is, like, it's decent, but it's like that's not what I'm chasing anymore. I mean, there was always a time in my life where I was going after followers and doing those stupid TikTok trends. But it's just like that's not what I'm going after anymore because I just kind of realized that's not what success is to me.
It's so interesting because it's like, I mean, I bet you still have moments. I certainly have moments where I, like, daydream about what if I'm, like, sitting down with Justin Bieber on the podcast and I'm having all these big guests. But it's so funny because, like, I mean, I've been lucky enough to, like, meet really big creators and have friends that are really big creators. And, like, a lot of those people, they have to hire employees. And so then they're responsible for other people. And then they have to get their videos out because they're paying for their house, they're paying for their employees. And, like, they have more anxiety, more stress than when they first started. And it's like, of course, I want this to be my full-time thing as I'm sure you want yours to be a full-time thing. But it's like, people are in such a rush to get to the views, to get to the money. And they forget that, like, so many of those people wish they would have, like, been in our position longer. It's like really a blessing in disguise.
That's actually, like, what I've seen. It's really interesting because I think that the new way that TikTok and Instagram do things, where they'll just, like, blow up any random video that follows their trends, I just think it's like such an awful way for people to get fame, because you can have 100,000 followers now on Instagram and it really means nothing anymore, because you might be a 16-year-old with 100,000 followers that has way less experience than someone like either of us do, and it just kind of means that you're not really prepared for it. Truly. Like, there's one guy that I've kind of connected with via Instagram, and he recently posted on his Instagram, which I thought was really interesting, that he doesn't really know why he has gotten so many followers and views, and he doesn't really know why Instagram did it, because I think he has like 70K or something now, and it's just like, he almost felt like he wasn't worthy of it. Have like all the experience, because he's been doing it for 1 year, and it's just like, I don't know, it just kind of comes out of nowhere. I think it's a weird way that Instagram does it now.
There's a... this held out here by that. There's a number of thoughts that come to mind. The first is a quote that says, fast success builds ego, slow success develops character. I don't think that's like 100% true, but I think a lot of the times it is true. It reminds me, I went to Carlsbad High School. I knew you grew up in this area too.
Temecula, so pretty local, I guess.
And I went to high school with like half the hype house. So it was really interesting seeing some of those kids blow up and go to LA, but when they would come home to Carlsbad, I'd see them at like high school parties. And it did not make them happier. Because this is the ultimate trap, and this is what Soul Wealth tries to defend against, is like, I think the number one reason people want to be a content creator is because they want to escape the 9 to 5. So they go, I don't want to have a 9 to 5. I want to like be the author of my own life. I want to create my own living. So then they go into content creation. But the trap is that when people think views first, or they think money first, they'll have something pop off. Maybe they're doing a trend, or maybe they look at the top. So they look at Mr. Beast and they go, oh, this is what he's doing. This is how I succeed. And then they end up finding something that works. So they create and create and create. And the issue is that while they're getting views, while they're getting money, it's like feels exciting and new, and it feels like they're following the right path. But then once all that stuff wears off, and they're making a type of content that doesn't represent them, and they're making a content that they're not actually passionate about, it's like worse than a 9 to 5, because you're like, I mean, this word's intense, but you're like enslaved to being a different version of yourself that you don't actually want to be.
And as a content creator, I don't even like that term anymore for what it's become, but as like a video creator, I have kind of seen the same thing, where you just get trapped into doing something that you don't really want to do, just because that's what stupid TikTok and Instagram algorithm want for you. And it's just the way that they do things now completely takes the creativity out of being a creative. And it's such a bummer to see people that are like truly talented that just aren't really seeing their full potential.
I do think though, like, as much as I also enjoy like hating on the algorithm, there is worlds. I don't know if you're familiar with Creator Camp at all, but like my friend owns
heard of it, no.
He owns like an event company where he brings like creators to like a cabin in the woods or something, and his company blew up really fast, and it's all about like authentic storytelling. It's all about these people who make these cinematic storytelling vlogs. And when I found them and I saw like their whole world, I was like, how does this exist? Because I'm getting filtered all this like Mr. Beast, like ADHD stuff, and I sat down with one of the founders, and he's telling me about how there's like those like tribal videos where people will make houses in the middle of nowhere and they're 50 minutes long with no cuts, but they have 10 million views. And like woodworkers who build a chair for an hour with very little cuts and they have 10 million views. There's like, there is definitely room to succeed. And sometimes like on our feeds, it feels like there isn't.
I know it's crazy stuff, but just the way that things are being done now, like one, it's just like trapping the creators into doing things that they don't want to do, but even more so, it's just trapping the viewers. The ones that are actually viewing it. It's just like everything is now designed so that it's just gonna keep you attached. And it's just, I don't know.
It's like people are going on social media and they're seeing all this fast-paced content, so their attention spans are decreasing. And then when they ask themselves how they want to create content, that's what you do. You go to an industry, you look at the top. So they're looking at all these reels that are working, so they're making all their stuff fast-paced, which is therefore giving their viewers more ADHD. And it's like, we're literally like crippling our audiences.
Yeah, and that was an interesting thing about how much it's changed from this year to maybe 5 or 10 years ago, how people used to do long form content. And I was watching a video recently. I think it was Sam Newton.
Yeah.
He's a pretty well-known creator, and he had a YouTube video recently how he just misses real travel videos. Because now it's just like you get 5-minute snippets or 5-10-second snippets of where someone is, but it used to be like full travel vlogs that you get to see someone's like full experience there, and it was like true like work that would go into making a video like that, and that's what originally inspired creators like myself.
Well, what you just said is so important to point out, because you're that guy and you aren't the only people who feel that way. There's a number of people who feel that way. So that's like whenever I hear stuff like that, I actually get excited, because it's like, that's a hole that's not being filled. That people want to see. And it's even like, I know a ton of people in my industry grew up with like Casey Neistat, David Dobrik, all those vloggers. And for me, it's so easy to go out and vlog and feel like I need to make this crazy cinematic production. And I'm like, but that's not what I liked growing up. And the reason I feel that I should make that is because that's what people are doing like now. But I'm like, I'm actually at like an advantage, because if I was back there, I would have to compete with it's like, it's an advantage and a disadvantage. It's a disadvantage because it's not in style. But it's an advantage because no one else is doing it. And I like to try to see the positive and pull that out.
And I mean, I complain about it a lot just because it's new, and I personally like haven't really liked the way that it's promoted people, I guess. But honestly, there's a lot of positive in it too. It's given people an outlet to get to know more people, and that was one thing that's huge for me. Like, I've met people all around the world that there's no way that I would have met if it weren't for Instagram and TikTok. Like, I have friends that I've made in Hawaii and other countries, and I've worked with companies as well that are global, and it's just, it's cool to be able to do things like that.
It's so interesting you say that, because Instagram, this is why I was talking to you. We were walking over to film this podcast. I was taking BTS footage. Because one of my New Year goals is to use Instagram more. And it's like, me trying to be soul wealth guy, I was like trying to avoid screen time, trying to avoid time on Instagram, because I'm like, I need to be more present. I need to be in the moment. But the thing is that like, I had a podcast mentor of mine. He's 27. He's had like big people like Alex Hormozy, Mike Posner on his show. And he's talking to me and he's telling me about how like Twitter is the best platform. He's like, I get all my podcast guests on Twitter. Like I find,
or X now.
X. He's like, I do all my research on X. So I don't have a Twitter really. So I'm like, what should I do? And I go to follow all the people I've done podcasts with. But as I go through all 60 podcasts, I realized that only like 4 people I've interviewed have Twitter. And then I was thinking, bro, like whenever my mom talks to me about her friends, she talks about Facebook. And when we talk about our friends, we talk about Instagram. And I was thinking, and then I sat down with this girl who has a whole account based on helping people build a personal brand. And she's telling me like, Instagram in our era is your resume. And it's the like holy grail platform. Like if you like a girl, you're going to go look through their Instagram. If you think some dude's interesting, you're going to go look through their Instagram. And so it's like, I used to just feel like more screen time equaled like being a less present person and being like less in the moment. But now I'm realizing like, with Instagram and other things such as AI, people are always talking about how AI is going to take over and it's going to be dangerous. It's like, it's a tool. Like you can pick up a hammer and like hit someone with it, or you can use it. And I really feel bad for the people who like, this sounds so bad, but I feel bad for the people who aren't content creators and are like wasting their time on Instagram.
Yeah.
Because
You just don't have like a reason for it. You're just.
Yeah, and that's like what I said. Like, to me, Instagram's been the biggest blessing in the world. Because like you, I've met so many friends. I've had opportunities. The only reason we're sitting down is because I saw your Instagram.
Yeah.
And people who are just like mindlessly scrolling or like comparing themselves to others, and it's just like that's a tool that drains their life.
Yeah, and that's why like whenever I look at my screen time, because I think in 2023 that was one thing that I really cracked down on more was my screen time, because everyone struggles with that now. But when I look at it and I see that I've been on Instagram or something for 2 or 3 hours in one day, it's just like initially it's like it like hurts, because it's like, wow, did I just waste like almost like a fourth or a fifth of my day just like scrolling on my phone? But it's not always that. Yeah. For me, I spend a lot of my time on social media finding new things to do and kind of inspiring myself by looking at other people's work. And sure, I'm still consuming, but it's more that I'm just like inspiring myself.
Well, that's the thing. I had the same like goal, less screen time, but I realized it actually wasn't a good thing I was telling myself, because what I was teaching myself is that work is when I sit down on my computer and I edit. I was like, that's work, and everything else is a waste of time. So I was like, I was going on Instagram, doing more work, DMing podcast guests, making reels and stuff, but then I would feel guilty about it. Yeah. Because I convinced myself that it was like all social media time is bad.
I know. And that's been a huge thing for me as well, is guilt. Yeah. Whenever I'm doing my work and I'm seeing that other people are doing these crazy things and releasing amazing videos almost every other day, and it's just like, why can't I do that? Yeah. I spend 8 to 10 hours a day sitting at my computer, and then I still feel guilty that I'm not editing. Whenever I go out and I go for a hike or go surfing or something, it's just like kind of a sense of guilt, and that's something that I still struggle with, that whenever I'm not busy, I feel like I still should be.
Yeah, bro, this is like what Soul Wealth comes out of. It comes out of the biggest addiction in America, which is workaholism. Yeah. And no one really talks about it, and it's the same thing too. It's so big in our like sphere, because you feel like you're taking the like everyone says college is a safe route, and we're taking like the dangerous route. Yeah. Even though I'd make a whole argument as to why that's not the case. Yeah. But so we feel this like guilt that like, we grew up watching David Goggins and all these people tell you like, if you want your dreams, just work harder. Yeah. But it's like, what are you working for? And I'm reading this book. It literally just came out. It's by Ali Abdaal, who's like one of the leading productivity experts in the world. And the whole thesis of the book, which is like scientifically backed over and over again with like all these studies and says, is that the most productive people are the most joy-filled. So when we do we get in these grind modes where you're like, I'm trying to work 8 to 10 hours a day, and you're like choosing to opt out of plans or fun things. Mm-hmm. You're sitting down for more hours to work in the day, but you're actually less productive in those hours. Yeah. And that's something where I'm like, making sure I get to a joy state before I record this podcast, making sure I get to a joy state before I sit down and edit is like, that's like such a resolution that I'm taking in the new year. Yeah,
I've kind of done the same thing where I kind of try and make it a ritual before I go editing or before I just do anything creative. Yeah. I kind of try and get into the best mind space before I do that. Lately, one thing that I've found works a lot is taking cold showers. Yeah. I obviously don't have a polar plunge or anything where I can do that, but I've been seeing people stressing how useful it is to do polar plunges or take cold showers, and I've kind of tried to make it something that I do every time, because it gets you in that same mind space, and that repetition every time is just, I don't know why it works the way it does. Yeah. But for me, that's just been one thing that I've seen a lot of success with.
So it is. There's science behind it. It dumps endorphins, but it's like, it's good because you're not like relying on a drug to create it. So like if you're relying on alcohol or drug, then you're like weakening your body's ability to make it because you're getting it from an outside source. But
Yeah.
stuff like working out and cold plunges and running, like you're creating it from within. So you're teaching your body how to like make those
Yeah.
things better.
Yeah. And doing things naturally like that is one of the best things that you can do for yourself, because if you have that same ritual where this is kind of what I've started doing every morning. I wake up.
Yeah.
I try not to sleep in. I almost set an alarm every single day.
Yeah.
Maybe not the past few days because it's the new year, but yeah, I have been setting an alarm maybe like 7 a.m. every morning, go to the gym and work out, get back, eat breakfast, cold shower, and get to work.
Yeah.
And that's just one thing that I've seen has completely helped me, and it changes the way that I work.
It's interesting too when I think like a lot of people think very linearly. So it's like I don't make that much money. I'm pretty broke right now. But I try to like spend extra money on eating healthy.
Yeah.
And where it's like a lot of people will our age, especially in college, they'll just like rinse McDonald's and all these places. But I really think of it as like an investment where it's like, yeah, now I'm buying all this like organic, healthy food. But I think that in the long term, like medical bills and actually even just going off what we said, like when you eat, I directly notice when I eat like horribly, then I feel horrible. And when I feel horrible, then I'm working not in an optimal position. So it's like really optimizing routine and like doing the cold showers, the sleeping, the eating healthy, like those things make you feel better. When you feel better, you work better.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's honestly, I don't really notice a difference with it anymore because I have just kind of made it a life choice not to eat like that. I mean, we all have our ups and downs with it, but I've just kind of made it like a thing where I almost get like kind of nervous and like scared if I am not eating the way that I should be.
I do too. I get guilty. And that's one of my 10 New Year's resolutions was like, I literally wrote, don't let guilt use you, use guilt for a better you. And what I mean by that is like, I don't want to feel guilty if I'm on Instagram promoting my brand, but I do want to feel guilty if I'm like eating like crap and drinking too much. And so it's like I try to like create guilt as like a weapon for my advantage.
Yeah, and I am the same exact way. I mean, I think it's always healthy to, what's the right word? It's always healthy to see your lows and to be eating unhealthy because it gives you something that you need to do better. I think it's always smart to be able to just relax and go enjoy yourself. Same thing goes for when you're doing work and stuff. It gives you a low so that you can achieve highs, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, you're right. It's interesting because when I remember like the buzz phrase for entrepreneurs and creators is like, your job has to be what you love.
Yeah.
And I would do YouTube and I'd be like, yeah, I love recording vlogs, but I don't really love editing them. I don't really love, and I'd like doubt, I would second guess my passion because I didn't love every part of that process. But then I realized that that's like such a stupid frame of thinking because like, you wouldn't get that like high feeling after working out if you went in there and you just loved all of it. Like people who say they love working out love it because they love how it makes them feel.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not in there like thrilled that they're pumping iron, you know? I mean, maybe they are because they know what it leads to, but so I'm realizing that too, that it's actually like a blessing to have parts of the process.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a better way to live your life, honestly. I see people that aren't working out and they just don't have the motivation that someone does when they are strict with themselves and they don't let themselves go eat McDonald's all the time and drinking constantly. It's just, I don't know, you gotta find your middle ground and find what truly makes you feel alive, I guess.
So topic switch. You said in 2022, there was a podcast that changed your life, and it was essentially along the lines of living as if your biggest dreams and goals, you could achieve them today. What does that mean or entail?
So I think I was talking about that at the end of 2022, kind of looking out into 2023. It was basically like you have to live in a way where you see everything that's like possible for you on the horizon, and it's just like within reach.
Yeah.
I don't really know how to put it, but it's just, yeah, you just have to live in a way where you just know that everything that is out there is possible for you. Because for me, I mean, I always have a lot of self-doubt, but I've kind of just kept that as a constant reminder in my head that everything is possible. I live in California where a lot of the times I face self-doubt and I just feel like nothing's going to happen for me, but that's just a normal human way to think. But yeah, it's just, it's a good way to live, I guess.
I think that is interesting that you put it that way, or you heard it that way.
Yeah.
It kind of goes back to what I was saying, where it's like me in my past, and I'm sure a lot of people are in a similar position to me. They'll be like, hey, I've been doing this for years, but because I don't have the numbers that tell me, because I don't have 1 million subscribers, well, I'm not a YouTuber. Or because I don't have 10,000 monthly podcast listeners, I'm not a podcaster.
Yeah.
But I try to focus on like other things that are in my control. So like a statistic I always say is 90% of podcasters quit after the 3rd episode, and 99% of podcasters quit after the 20th episode.
Yeah.
So me being on the 60th episode means that I'm in the top 1% of all podcasts ever. And it's like, that's a metric I control, is how many podcasts I put out. But it's funny because I used to be so obsessed with like daydreaming futures up, and the less and less I look at the future, the more I'm just like present, and I just like own the fact that I'm a podcaster. It's ironic because I'm trying to forget about the future, but it's the more I believe in myself. It's like, I really, really, and I tell people this all the time, I really, really believe that I'm going to sit down with like the biggest names in the world. I really believe that I might film a podcast in friggin' space, bro. Like, I just like, I have
Dream big. That's cool.
Yeah. And it's like, I just don't have any doubt.
Yeah. And that's an amazing way to think. I think that podcasts are one of the most useful tools that you can watch and that you can consume as literally any, not even as like a creator, but as any person. That's one thing that I've utilized a ton in 2022, 2023, and now hopefully 2024. Watching podcasts and learning from other people's experiences is more useful than anything that school could teach you.
Well, it's the deepest resource. So, like, if I watch a TikTok of someone, there's people who can like put a story in a TikTok and make it really good, but even someone who makes a 3-minute TikTok and they're telling as much of their life as they can, even that, it's like you can only learn so much. And then you go on YouTube and you can watch like a 15-minute video about someone's life. Maybe it's something like Hey Tim, and you can really learn about that person. But like then you go and watch Sam Kolder on someone's podcast, and it's like the most you can learn about that person. But and it's so interesting. So like I still vlog. The podcast is my main thing, but I still vlog.
Yeah.
And I don't like try to optimize for views. I put whatever title I want. I put whatever thumbnail I want. And when people ask me about it, I go, if the vlogs randomly blew up, great. But that's not the goal of them. The goal of them is that if someone finds me on this podcast, they have multiple layers they can connect with me on. Because it's like, I'm sure you've had a musician you really like, and you listen to their music, you're like, dude, their music's incredible. But then you see an interview with them and you're like, bro, they grew up in the same hometown as me, or they like the same other musician as me. And then you go on their Instagram and you're like, and the more and more like places that person exists, the more levels that a stranger can like deepen their relationship with you on the internet.
Yeah, and that's what's really cool. I said that I have listened to a lot of podcasts. I have found people that I really like on Instagram, people that I almost idolize, and connecting them with them on one platform is really cool. But then when you're able to connect with them on another, such as a podcast, it's so cool to just like see the way that they think, and I guess like what's inspired them to do what they do, because for example, with Sam Kolder, ever since I got Instagram when I was like 10 or 12 years old or whatever, he was one of the first people that I followed, and I've kind of idolized him as a creator, like ever since I have started doing what I do. And he was such an inspirational person. And then in this past year, I listened to one of his podcasts, and I had never like really seen that side of him, but that's just one thing why I think that podcasts are such a useful tool for us to basically inspire ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Kolder is a great example. So the concept I'm talking about, like with going to the different labyrinths, is like someone can become a super fan, where it's like right before this podcast started, you asked me like, have you watched this podcast with Sam Kolder? And it's probably because like you're like gauging to see if I'm also a super fan. And it's like you and Mateo, you've both done his creative course.
Yeah.
It's like you've both done his creative course. You both watched Hey Tim. You both seen his work on Instagram.
Yeah.
So it's like you almost like get initiate. You can never meet Sam Kolder, although I think you will, and I think Mateo will. But like you could never meet him and still make friends and belong to a community because of him.
Yeah.
Like think about how much closer you and Mateo are because of that like shared.
Yeah, and it's actually such a cool thing with the Sam Kolder course. It's a very expensive course.
Yeah.
But I was lucky enough to get it for free. He had posted a contest one time.
Yeah.
That I was like, I whenever I see contests, it always just like kind of intrigues me a little bit. And I saw it and I'm like, well, maybe I'll try it. Like, what does it hurt? Like, so they basically came up with like a topic that we had to create a video on, and I wasn't gonna do it. And then the night before, like literally 24 hours before the deadline, Mateo was telling me, my buddy Mateo, and he was telling me that he entered into it and that I should do the same. So I was like, what the heck? Like, why not? So literally, like right after that, I brainstormed an idea, came up with it, and within 24 hours, I had a finished video that I was like, okay, well, we'll see what happens with this. So I posted it. And then a few days or a few weeks later, I don't remember what it was, I got a notification on my phone that Kolder Creative like had chosen me to be one of the winners for it, and I basically won the course.
Wow.
So that just kind of goes to say, like, even things that you don't think that will work, like any little opportunity, you never know what will bring you to the craziest places, because ever since then, I have entered in more contests for them, and then they give away job opportunities, and I've won a job opportunity from Kolder Creative, this free course that I got that I happened to enter because one of my friends told me to. So it's just...
What job opportunity was that?
I was basically working for another company. It's called Splice. They're a video editing app, and I got a 3-month job opportunity with them, where I was just creating videos for them, and it's just like, that's like my dream. Like, it was such a cool thing to be able to do.
It's so big to take those risks, and even when they don't work out, the example I always go back to is my friend Chris. He started the company Creator Camp I was telling you about.
Yeah.
He had a dream of meeting all his heroes. So he wrote his heroes down on a list. He wrote like some YouTubers, some entrepreneurs, some authors, and he had this list, and he had this idea. If I can get the email chris@forbes.com, all my heroes will respond to me. So one day he made a magazine. He like copied a Forbes magazine, but he put himself on it. And then within the magazine was like his resume, and he put it in this nice Forbes box. And he went to USC at the time. He skipped school. He flew to New York City and walked into the Forbes headquarters. They share a building with other companies, so he needs to like get up to the floor. And as he was walking in, the people were like, hey, you're not allowed in here, get out. And so he walks around and finds a mail elevator, because in New York City, a lot of the buildings have mail elevators. And the mail dude didn't care at all. He's like, sure, you can take the mail elevator. So he rides up to the Forbes floor, and he walks to the biggest glass office in the building, and he knocks, and he pitches himself for a job. And they were like intrigued. They're like, hey, I like your story, we'll get back to you. And basically they ghosted him. So he spent hours, spent hundreds of dollars on this flight. He flew to New York City, and he didn't get the job, but he posted a video about it. And after he posted the video about it, Inc. magazine, which is the second biggest business magazine in the world, was like, we want to hire you right now. And so it's like, sometimes opportunities, I mean, in your case, like, you won the challenge, but for all you know, you could have lost the challenge. But because of making that video, you end up meeting other people who are in the course. And it's like, it's something I've learned is that risk is not necessarily about if it works or if it hits. Risk will just take you to new places that you need to be.
Yeah, and it was very cool to be able to do that. And sure, I've entered into more challenges for more than just that company, and I've lost a million times. Like, it's gonna happen. I've posted a million videos out there that just don't get any traction, and it's whatever. But you'll never know if you don't try. And that was one thing that was one of my takeaways from 2023 is do everything. Like, there's no reason to not unless you're lazy. Like, that's the only thing that can really stop you. And so since then, I've basically just tried to do everything that's humanly possible for me, and I've had no regrets doing that. I've gotten a million other opportunities, and I've met a million other people just through little connections here and there. And yeah, it just goes to say, try everything.
Wow. Do you have a word for 2024? Like, if you got to pick a word that would represent the year.
That's a thinker right there. For 2024,
I can leave as mine. What do you think?
Yeah.
It's because we just talked about it. My word for 2024 is risk. And the reason for it is because right now, like, my parents, I'm still young, so my parents still support me. I don't have a girlfriend or a family. I don't have employees. And it's like, the more and more you take on those responsibilities, the less and less you should take huge risks. Because it's like, if you're responsible for employees, then maybe you shouldn't put all your bank account on the line. If you're responsible for a family, then maybe you shouldn't. And I was thinking about it. It's like, I'm 22. I don't know how many years I really can just put everything on the line. Like, I could lose all my money right now and I'd still be fine, you know? And so it's like, that's something where I think about the podcast. I'm like, I'm very disciplined. I'm very consistent. I hit 2 episodes a week 95% of the weeks of the year. But it's like, how do I not just be consistent, and how do I do something completely different? Whether, right now, I mean, we're filming on a cliff. That's not that big of a deal. Maybe I try to rally people and try to buy one of those Blue Origin trips to space and do the first podcast in space. Maybe I try to climb Mount Everest and do the first podcast on top of Mount Everest. Who knows? I don't know what the risk is yet. But it's just like leaning into risk more while I can.
Yeah, why not? I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat right now, where risk has been on my mind constantly lately because a lot of people don't know, but I'm actually a student right now at SDSU. I don't really post about it too much, but I'm about to get a degree in a field that I'm just like not really too interested in anymore. And it's just like, I don't really plan on going into that field when I graduate, because I have kind of found what I truly love, and that's one of the biggest risks. Like, I have no idea how I'm going to be able to make enough money to sustain myself, and it's scary. I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat where I'm lucky enough to have my parents supporting me a lot in everything that I do, but that doesn't last forever. So it's just another scary thing. But I would say that that's one of my bigger words for 2024 is trust.
Yeah.
That I am trusting in my ability, because I know that I'm going to be able to put in enough work to get where I want one day. And even if that doesn't happen right away, I trust myself that I will be able to make it possible. And when I have trusted myself in the past, it's never turned me the wrong way. Like, when I trust, it lets everything go the way it should, I guess.
It is so interesting, though, to like hyperanalyze what we're saying, which is essentially that, like, making it means I would say the way we're defining making it is sustaining a living off of your passion.
Yes.
Which is huge. But at the same time, it's like, I've known so many successful people from 9 to 5s to other creators where they've made it, but they're not as like joy-filled and happy as me. So it's like, as much as I'm so eager to like make it and stuff too, I always try to slow down and be like, dude, I'm broke right now, but I'm honestly really happy right now. Like I am. So it's like, who's really winning?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good way to live. I mean, I think that once you...
Why? Like, that fly like had some balls, bro.
Yeah, with money, like, I think that when you chase money, you don't find true happiness. But when you let go of money, that's when you become truly happy. And that's another... I always find a million little quotes that kind of get me through the year that I just kind of keep in my mind. But that's one of them, where it's just like chasing money. I think time and time again, the richest people can tell you that money is not what will make you happy.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of the way that I've lived my year, and it's...
I'm a big quote person too. I put like all my brand and even my hobbies, I have it all in Notion.
Yeah.
And I have a list.
Oh, you use Notion?
Yeah, are you a Notion user?
I started using it.
Oh, it's good. The more you use it, the more valuable it is.
Yeah.
But I literally have a list of like 100 quotes that I've collected over the past 5 years.
Yeah.
And there's one that's loosely related to what we're talking about that says, it says this. It says, if you put fulfillment before truth, you'll have neither. And if you put truth before fulfillment, you'll have both. And like I'm religious, so it's actually a religious quote. It's talking, but it can be applied to what we're saying, which is, it's essentially saying like, if you put fulfillment first, like all the things that you fulfill you. So like, well, I don't know if fulfill is the right word, but it's like instant gratifying things where it's like, oh, alcohol instantly gratifies me, or eating bad instantly gratifies me. And it's like those things, if you put fulfillment as your like first priority, then you're not gonna, in the long run, you're not gonna be like fulfilled, and you're not gonna know the truth. But if you put it the other way around, which is like the truth in this scenario is that like eating healthy makes you better, that not chasing money makes you happier. And I don't know, that was always like it's hard to explain it outside of a religious context, but that was something that I always thought was a really interesting quote.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I mean, when you search for the truth, really, you're not searching for something that's like physical in front of you. And I think that once you kind of let go of the reins, that's when things start to come to you. And that was just another thing that I thought about in the past year, is just once you kind of stop trying so hard to get one thing, because the road in front of you, obviously it goes in one direction, but there's a million different paths that you can take to get to that spot. So I mean, if you have one goal, for me it's to be able to sustain myself doing what I love. I don't know exactly what that's going to be. I could be a travel creator. I can work for a marketing firm, and I can be a video editor for a surf brand or something. Like just random things. Like I have the goal like of doing one of those. I don't know what it's going to be, but I imagine that one of those paths is going to take me to a job in that field where I can do what I love and make money doing it.
Well, that's huge that you're not attached, because I think you always hear that quote with girls. It's like, there's always another fish in the sea. Yeah. But then with our careers, we don't really like apply it. We're like, okay, I decided when I was 16 that I wanted to be a YouTuber, so I'm just going to post YouTube videos infinitely forever. Or like I hear people like literally when I was listening to Mr. Beast's story, which I respect Mr. Beast. I respect all these YouTubers. But I hear people, they're like, if you want to do YouTube, this is how you do it. You just post videos and you never quit until you die. And you're like,
hey, like that's not bad.
But it's funny because like in one sense I agree, but in the other sense I'm like when I came to this podcast, like podcasting was never my dream growing up. It was YouTube. But I was like, when I was thinking about it, I was like, well, let me just try it. It's like still in the creator field. When I tried it, I realized that I instantly liked it more. But I had prolonged trying it for so long because I was like, I'm a YouTuber. And I guess the point of that story is that I think we get really attached to like a career rather than like a way of life.
Yeah.
Which is like, it doesn't matter if I'm a YouTuber, if I'm a podcaster, if I'm a videographer, if I'm a photographer, I can still live an adventurous lifestyle where I'm my own boss and I like travel the world. And that's what I want to do.
Yeah. That's a cool goal to have. I saw your one video that you posted.
Just now?
No, it was the one where you were skydiving and you were, what did you say in that? You were like, I'm going to have 1 million followers.
Yeah, bro. Dude, that makes me cringe so hard because that's not...
No, I thought that was cool.
You like it. See, I feel like that's really off-brand for me now because I'm trying to like teach people not to obsess about the future.
Yeah?
But...
That's cool though.
I do think that it will be true, and I think one day it'll be cool to look back on.
Yeah, that's another thing, like what we were saying, where it's like you might have that goal in mind, but you don't know how you're going to get there. So, I mean, it's a good goal to have, but you want to be loose with the path that will take you there.
I think that's so important, bro, to be loose, because I think we just live in an era of... I mean, in our industry, it's so easy to get so attached, and it's like, people will convince themselves they're passionate about something they're really not.
Yeah. That's pretty much how I was. Coming out of like high school, I thought that I was passionate about the construction industry.
Yeah.
That's what I went to college for. That was the stuff that I was like, okay, this is going to be a good job. I can make good money with this. And it's interesting, which honestly, I still do find it interesting. It's very cool, but it's not my passion. I wish that I had gone with my gut when I was younger because like I said, I've been doing creative stuff ever since I was almost 10 years old. I started drawing when I was, I think, 9. And obviously I don't really do stuff like that anymore, but it's just like, I kind of wish that I had trusted myself when I was younger. But I don't think that I really had anyone that was telling me, like, if you believe in yourself, you can do this. Yeah. And then I think that just within the past, like, 3 or 4 years, I just kind of realized it on my own or learned it somewhere along the way. And I kind of wish that I had done that earlier. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. It's funny to hear someone be, like, passionate about construction.
Yeah, well, I don't know if passion was the right word for that, but...
You come from a lineage of construction.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of family that has kind of worked in that field and it makes good money. I don't know if that's going to be anyone's passion, but it's just a good way. You can make a good living off of it. But I don't think that I would ever truly feel content if that's what I went into right after, while I'm 22 years old. I'm so young right now. Like,
you can literally
oh my God,
always go back and get a construction job.
Yeah, and that's why I'm just like, I don't know. I don't really talk about that with people too much because I just don't want people to think that I'm like, that's what I am. But, yeah, I mean, that's just, not to say that I'll never do that, but it's just not really in the books for me right now, I guess.
I think what you're talking about also goes the other way, though, too, in the sense that I think there's people who grow up who might be a great construction worker or might be a great teacher, but because they go on YouTube and they see 10,000 other kids saying this is their passion, they're like, oh, that's the cool passion, so therefore it's my passion. Yeah. And then people end up in a content creating career when they aren't actually passionate about it.
Yeah, and that's where having role models can almost be dangerous sometimes. Where, especially right now with social media, you see someone doing something cool and you're like, wow, that looks fun. I want to do that. Are you really cut out for it? Like, you just don't know until you like experiment with it. And that's why a lot of people probably feel trapped in that industry right now. When it's like, if that's something that you're truly passionate about and you have the skills, it's not going to be like you're pushing against like a firm wall where it's just like you're not making any progress.
And that's how I used to feel when I first started. I think I was truly passionate about it, but I let the current wave of what was succeeding change the way I created. And when it changed the way I created is when I hated it the most. Mm-hmm. And now it's like I come on here and I really just like Like I try to just have the conversation I would have off camera. I try to.
Yeah.
And there's like always a degree of performing. Like it's not like I'm unaware there's a camera or that. Like I do my research. It's not like I'm researching for my everyday conversations, but it's really just trying to be like not create from the perspective of like what do I think people will like, but create from the perspective of like what do I actually like. Because I don't think there's any better indicator of what someone else will like than if you like it yourself.
Yeah.
And sometimes we think the best indicator of what someone else will like is copying what's working. And
yeah, and that's another thing that I've always thought about is you can have your role models, but don't be a copycat. Like,
yeah,
I think that I read something somewhere where it's like ideas never really just come to you from nothing.
yeah.
All ideas that you're going to have are inspired in one way or another, and ideas kind of float out there. They're fluid and they go from person to person, but it's never going to just come to you. So that's why when you get inspired by someone, like, that's amazing. Find what you like about that person, take it to be your own and mold it in the way that fits you. That's what I do with a million different people. I have maybe 4 or 5 people on Instagram and or YouTube that I see, and I'm just like, wow, I think that their style is so cool and so inspiring. I want to do something like that, but put your own twist on it and make it your own. And that's I see that's kind of what you've done with this podcast there. It's just like, I personally haven't really seen anything like this. I think it's awesome that you do stuff like this.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I think so much of that gap, there's like a really, really famous video. It's called it's by Ira Glass. It's called The Creative Process. And he says when someone starts their creative journey, they have really good taste. So it's like maybe you grow up, you're watching Clark Little, you're watching Sam Kolder, and you're like, your taste is what they're creating. So you're like, if I could make something like what they're creating, I would be where I want to be. But then, so the whole video is about the gap. The gap is that people who start a creative journey have really good taste because they're consuming really good taste. But then they don't have the ability to create it because the people who are creating it have been doing it for years.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people give up because what they want to make, they're literally unable to make it.
Yeah.
And
and it's funny that you mentioned Clark Little, because I think that when I first got Instagram, when I was in 5th grade, 10 years old, whatever, he was one of the first people that I ever followed. And after I followed him, I bought myself a GoPro Hero 3. And I was like, okay, that's like my dream job right there. I want to be a surf photographer, and I want to go get photos inside the barrel of a wave. So if anyone knew me when I was little, like, they would always see me out there with my little GoPro, like, filming. And I did that for maybe like 2 or 3 or 4 years, until I was like, one day I'm going to have a water housing for my camera where I could go take real photos like Clark Little. So for the longest time, I was like what you said, I was trying to pursue something that wasn't really within my reach when I was 12 years old. But it was kind of cool because in the past year, I was able to finally like achieve that. And I finally was able to buy myself a water housing now that I actually make my own money. But it's kind of interesting to see how your interests change over the years, because I bought that housing and I thought like, wow, this is going to be so sick for me. Like, I can finally take the photos and the videos that I've always wanted to, but my interests have kind of just changed now. Like, I bought that and I honestly don't use it like I thought I would, because I just have a million other things that kind of caught my eye. I don't know. That's just like a little random.
I mean, it's okay. That's the thing, is like, people have the taste and they have their current talent and current ability, and the only way to lessen the gap is reps. And through the reps, your taste is will never be exactly what it was when it started. And that's not the goal, because you don't want to be the next Clark Little. You want to be the next James Varela.
Yeah. It's a good way to put it. But yeah, and that, I guess that's kind of true, because sure enough, that's kind of what I do a little bit. I do shoot water photography and water videography sometimes, because I love the ocean. I find it so beautiful out there. but that's just not really what I define my work by, like Clark Little does. I've taken a piece of every single person that I like and I've made it my own. And that's kind of what you're saying, where I have a million different things that I do on my Instagram. And I've kind of found that as a problem lately, actually, because I see so many people out there that have like one style that they have, but I kind of feel like for me, it's just, I have a million different styles that I kind of define my work by, where I do water photography, I do like nature, like mountains and hiking, I do drone shots, I do concert photography, and it's like
real estate.
Yeah, I've done real estate, I do skydiving, like everything. So it's like, how do I kind of fit that all into one portfolio? I don't know. It's weird.
I do feel like I need to jump in on this because I had the same thing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's probably what you're describing is probably a little bit of shiny object syndrome. And so shiny object syndrome is what I really struggled with, which is I posted my first vlog in May of 2019, so that's like 4.5 years ago. And since I posted my first vlog, I've gone on tangents where I made music. I went on a tangent where I tried to do stand-up comedy for a little bit. I'm currently on a tangent doing podcasting, although I think this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I even did stand-up comedy, like tried it a couple times. And I used to be like mad at myself because I'd be like, if you didn't have such bad shiny object syndrome, you would be successful by now. But then again, it goes back to how you define success. It's like, I'm saying I would be successful because I think that my YouTube videos would have more views if I just focused on that. And if you go into any creative field, the first thing people will tell you, niche down, niche down, niche down. But then when I listen to all these people who have made it, all these success stories, the most common thing I hear is like, I wish I wasn't in such a rush. I wish I had tried more things. And it's like, if I were me, but my YouTube channel had blew up and I had 5 million subscribers and I had all these employees, well, I couldn't casually go try stand-up comedy. I couldn't casually go because I have a company to run. I have employees to feed, a family. It's like right now is the only time where you can do drone photography, real estate photography, ocean photography, and maybe Clark Little, who's running his massive business, is like, dang, I wish I could do that, but I'm responsible for people now. I don't have the bandwidth to do that.
Yeah.
And the other thing with that too is I think, especially into the era that we're entering, I think we're entering the personal brand era, where it's like, before this, everyone's talking about niche, niche, niche. And he's like, dude, Clark Little can sell any ocean thing. Like, he can sell any ocean thing. And he's so big that he probably could step into other fields and succeed. But if Clark Little wanted to go make car videos, he'd probably face a massive drop-off because his fan base, yes, they're fans of him, but really they're fans of the ocean.
Yeah.
And it's like, you see these people who are more personal brands, like Emma Chamberlain. Emma Chamberlain will make a video like, I spilled my coffee, and it will get 10 million views. And then she can travel to Europe and it will get 10 million views. And then she can, because she doesn't think of my brand as my brand's not traveling, my brand's not coffee, my brand is me, and all my hobbies are just things that attract people to the personal brand of me. And it's like, maybe James Varela doesn't have to pick one thing and like...
Yeah, and that's kind of funny because ever since I started doing content, for the longest time, I never posted myself. Like, it was always like just me behind the camera. But then I kind of realized about 2 years ago, I'm like, people don't follow an Instagram account for really the stuff that's not a good way to say it. They don't really follow it for, I guess, what's posted. It's more for the person that they're following because they know that person is going to be posting this type of content. I don't know if that's a good way to say it, but yeah, it's just personal branding is just huge. So that's kind of what I started doing in the past 2 years is I started posting myself and being more intimate and personal with social media because people want to learn from me. They don't want to just see what I do, I guess.
I think you are identifying something super important, which goes back to what we were talking about. Our holy grail platform is Instagram. That's just the era we grew up in.
Yeah.
And I think the most underrated aspect of any platform for people our age is Instagram stories. And the reason why is Instagram stories is the one place where people will like if you were to wanted to share your like thoughts, your written thoughts, you would probably share them to your Instagram story. You'd be like, hey, I remember you had that video where you and Mateo ended up hammocking on the side in Catalina or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're like, okay, I'm not going to make a whole video out of this, but like, that shows your actual personality. That shows that you and Mateo are the type of people who, if you don't have a place to sleep, you're going to whip out some hammocks. And it's so interesting because I was thinking about what does every Instagram offer? I think there's 3 things that every Instagram offers, whether you're a creator or whether you're some random dude at San Diego State, which is 1, what do I look like? Like every Instagram, unless it's like literally a photography page where you're not.
Yeah.
What do I look like? 2, where have I traveled? Like, where do I live? Where have I traveled? And then 3, what is a brief description of my job? So it's like, I could look at your Instagram, I can know what you look like, I can know what your job is, and I could know where you traveled. And that's the same for you as a creator as it is the same for some random person at San Diego State. And the thing I identified is that if you want to create a personal brand, and if you want your followers who follow you to actually care about you, to know, to be people who eventually buy stuff from you, to be people who support you, then you have to offer something outside of those 3 things because those are available everywhere.
Yeah, so just being like intimate with Instagram is just, it's huge to be able to like reach other people. Because I didn't do that for a really long time where I didn't ever post myself because I didn't feel like that's what people were really going to my Instagram for. And then, I just kind of realized at some point along the road that people do care. That's the reason that they hit the follow button because they see that person's cool. I like what they do, and I want to follow along for their journey. So,
well, it's like, bro, people can gather millions of followers taking cool photos, but if they never share who they are, like that audience, it goes back to what I'm saying. Is your audience a fan of you or are they a fan of what you do? And it's nice to have fans of what you do. Everyone who follows you is a fan of what you do, but the people who have fans of you, those are going to be the people that have the most fruitful businesses, that have the best audiences. And it's like, I literally have like 2,000 followers on Instagram. I get so much support. Like I get so many people DMing me, so many people saying the podcast really affects their life that like, I have confidence that if I needed something, even from my 2,000 followers, that I could get it.
Yeah. Isn't that like the coolest thing that you see when people like reach out and say, this made an impact on me? For me, that's the reason that I do it. Because when people have reached out to me and be like, dude, this inspired me so much. Like, I want to be able to like follow my dream and do what you do. It's just like, I hope you do. And I like fully support you in doing that because I just think it's so cool. I don't know what the feeling is. I don't know why I feel that way, but it's just whenever people tell me that, it makes me love what I do. Yeah.
No, it's big.
Yeah. And I mean, probably the same for you because podcasts are, like I said, one of the biggest things that have inspired me. So I'm sure that this could inspire a million other people.
Yeah, one day we'll see. Something I like about it is that I really get to root for other people's success because I try to pick guests who have a lot of potential. Like most podcasters, and I'm not saying I'm not avoiding successful people, like people who are in the peak of their career. Like someone wants an interview, like I'll give it to them. But I try to pick like younger people with more potential because it's like, what if you are Clark Little in like 10 years, not like someone of that status?
Yeah.
Then it's like, how cool would it be that your first podcast was with me? And it's like, if I have 300 guests that have that potential, and I just get a root for all of their success because their success is my success. And I think like another thing I wrote down in one of my 10 New Year's goals was to make people feel that they're more a part of my journey and that I'm more a part of their journey. Like, I don't want someone to just come on the podcast and be like, oh, I went on that podcast, that was great. I want it to be like, if you blow up, it's like associated with my podcast. If I blow up, it's like people are gonna go look at your photography. And so like thinking about, I'm not exactly sure how I cultivate that to the best of my ability, but that's something I'm trying to spend a lot of time thinking about.
Yeah, and that's super cool, because I think that a lot of the podcasts that I've listened to, I don't know when they were made because I've listened to a million.
Yeah.
But I'm sure a lot of them were before people accomplished great things. And it's also really cool because for me, because I can watch this 10 years from now, it's always going to be out there. So I can always see like, what were my thoughts back then?
Yeah. It'll be interesting too. Like imagine you are like world class and you have all this stuff and you're watching that and you can look back and be like, dude, I had so much uncertainty or I had so much doubt or like, who knows what it is. Random topic switch, but you took a road trip with, I want to say it was 10 people in a van or something across.
Yeah, that was, what's today, the second?
It's like a year ago, right?
It was almost exactly a year ago. I think we went on like January 10th or something of 2023. But yeah, that was a really unique opportunity where me and 6 of my friends, my friend Mateo included, we all got to go work with this brand, Suspicious Antwerp. Yeah. And they had basically a clothing collection that we got to film, and we went and traveled 6 people in one van for 10 days. And I posted about that on my Instagram, how that was like one of the weirdest experiences that I had all year, but that was easily my favorite. Because I had known Mateo for a few years before, and everyone else, all 4 other people that were in the van with me, I had never met before. And by the end of that trip, well, we also were together for 10 days in one van. By the end of that trip, we were all like best friends. And it was such a cool thing to experience because they're all pretty like-minded people and they're all like kind of in the creative industry. And it was just like hanging out with your best friends for 10 days, even though I just met them. That was my favorite experience of 2023. One of them.
I've had a couple moments like that. Like I went to Bend, Oregon for a creator camp event where it's just all creators. I walked across Spain with 2 strangers this summer. And those moments are just like so valuable because it's like, it's so easy to be in school and feel like none of these people do what you do. And when you're in a world where it feels like everyone has similar ambitions or similar goals to you, it's like the most inspiring, energy giving thing.
Yeah, totally. That's why people emphasize so much to surround yourself with like-minded people. Surround yourself with people that are better than you, that you want to be where they are, because that will push you to be there. If you hang out with people that just sit around and smoke weed all day and don't have any ambitions in life, you're going to eventually mold yourself to be the same person. And I feel like I was kind of in that boat for a little bit where I hung out with people that weren't really, they didn't resonate with the goals that I have. I've always set my goals really high. Things changed so much for me once I switched groups, because now I feel like I've connected with a lot of like-minded people, and it just has made me want more always.
So, given what you just said, I asked Mateo the same question. So many people see that I have all these content creator friends and see that I'm traveling, and they ask me, how do you find those people? And I was in this literally San Diego State, same position as you. What would your answer to that question be? How does someone who wants to have more ambitious, adventurous, entrepreneurial friends, how do they find them?
I would say it's mostly molding yourself to be that person. Obviously, you have to be an outgoing person that's willing to meet other people. But I think that for me, it was when I changed myself, those people just kind of started to come around me. Also reaching out on Instagram.
Dude, I mean...
No, but honestly, like being on Instagram, I started being a little bit more vocal and starting to support other people, and eventually you kind of just become friends with them.
Oh, dude, I'm so glad you gave that answer, because this is a question I was obsessed with, and I've it's something I've tried to answer so many times, and I think I have a pretty good answer to it. And the first part of my answer is exactly what you said, is people, when they say I mean, I kind of like baited you into that, but people, when they say, how do you find adventurous? The second you say, I'm looking for adventurous people, I'm looking for entrepreneurial people, you're missing. What you want to do is be an adventurous person.
Yeah.
Be an entrepreneurial person, and you will attract those people.
Exactly.
The other thing that's been huge for me, I don't hear it that many other people say it, but I'll say it's been absolutely the second biggest thing after that one is be someone who connects other people. So it's like, all right, after I'm done with this podcast with you, how can I think about my photography friends? I have a friend named Ethan Carlin. Do you know who Ethan Carlin is?
Don't think I know the name.
All right, you don't know who Ethan Carlin is. He goes to San Diego State. He is a concert photographer. He got flown out to do Rolling Loud. He's done Tyler, the Creator's concert.
Really?
He shoots for House of Blues. Huge people. After this podcast, I'm going to connect you with him. And I'm going to connect you. I know another kid, William Doan, who does concert photography. And so it's like, now, it might be nothing. I might give you the contact info. You might never meet up. But you might meet up and you might become good friends. And then you're going to forever associate that friendship with me, even if I'm never there at your hangouts. And then because I've made an effort to connect you with people, maybe there's a time where you're going to meet a podcaster and you're going to connect me with them. And I've realized the more and more I connect, I don't connect people so that one day they'll give it back to me. I just do it. But once you do it so much, you create a culture of like, this person's always connecting me. And then people literally just do it back to you. Like,
yeah, exactly. That happened pretty recently, actually, where a friend that I made through another friend, he connected me with someone that was looking to rent one of the cameras that I had, and I got connected with that friend who rented the camera from me. And then just recently, I saw that he was looking for a place to live out in Hawaii. So then I connected him to a friend that I met randomly, and now I think that he is taking that opportunity. Now he has a place to live in Oahu. So it's just random stuff like that. That's how it's every little experience of your life that will build you up to the place that you want to be, I guess. So I don't know. Just never stop taking those opportunities and meeting those people.
Yeah, it's so big though. Like, cause I think that person in Oahu is gonna be like, think of you, and and it also goes. I love thinking it from a relationships perspective, but it also goes from an event perspective. Like, something I've been trying to do recently is like, and I know you and friggin' Mateo are masters at this. Is like, if you do something adventurous and you get other people to come do it, if they have a good time, they're going to associate with you. It's like, oh, James and Mateo invited me to go on this road trip, or they invited me to come to Joshua's Tree and shoot the sand dunes. And I think that high school kind of conditioned us not to do both those things, because in high school, it's so cliquey. You're so worried about being judged. So you're like, I have a really good friend here that I would think would be really good friends with this person, but I'm like too scared to introduce them, because if they don't like each other, it's going to be like a bad reflection on me.
Exactly.
Or you have the other thing where it's like, I wish I could get all my friends to go skydiving, but you don't feel like you're going to be able to convince them. And then it's like, the more you can just let go of that fear and be like, you and Mateo, you're all getting your skydiving license. Well, now that's like something that you can attach to each other, and it like deepens your relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you say, how high school just kind of conditions you to be a certain way and almost be a little bit antisocial.
Yeah.
That's how I was in high school.
Yeah.
In high school, I was a completely different person than I was in college. And that's why you just want to take every opportunity that you get, because I ended up going to college. And if I hadn't gone to college, there's no chance that I would be where I am right now. I've always told people that it's so important to get out of your hometown, because when you are surrounded by the same people, you're going to think the same way as them. But the time that I finally decided to get out of my hometown and move to San Diego, I have met so many more people, and that just would not have happened if I stayed in in Temecula. So that's why it's important to take every opportunity, because I went to college for a degree that I'm probably not going to use. And it's like taking a step back, it's like, wow, should I really have done that? But if I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think of college a lot because I think degrees are going down in value. And you can literally just take basic economics. The more something exists, the less it's worth. And we have more and more college degrees than we've ever had, so therefore economically they're worth less than they've ever been.
Yeah.
I could go on a number of other reasons, such as kids cheating with AI, having iPhones. If everyone's cheating, then why would you value the degree that much? But whatever. Let's just and so I in a sense I do kind of take a position against degrees, but I always tell people the social value of college is like, it's worth that. That's what you should be doing. Like when you go to college is.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm getting at, is that I don't think that college was useful for the education for me.
Yeah.
It was useful because of the people that I met in my classes, the people that I met through any other organizations. That's where the true value came from. And that's where there's people in my family too that I'm just like thinking, I'm like, I feel like they should have gone to college, because some people that I've seen are almost stuck in a rut where they just haven't, I feel like they haven't changed a lot since they were in high school, because you just didn't go get out of your hometown and learn a million different things, because that's where true learning comes from, not from the classroom.
Yeah. It's interesting.
I don't know, not to say that you won't ever make those connections if you don't go to college, but it's just, I think that was such a useful way. There's a million other ways that you could go accomplish the same exact thing, but for me, college was that way of doing that.
It's funny because do you remember like in high school how stressful it was trying to get into your like college that you wanted to go to? It's funny. If I were talking to someone now, a high schooler, if I was talking to a junior in high school, I would literally be like, what is your dream school? And they'd tell me whatever, UCLA, whatever. I'd be like, regardless if you get in, just go buy an apartment as close to campus as possible and act like you go there. And
I literally have friends that do that.
Tens of thousands of dollars and get the social connections. Yeah. And you can't not get into your dream school because all you do is just move there.
Yeah.
And then you just chill on campus.
It's one way to do that. And I mean, obviously not everyone has that opportunity to be able to do that. And that's another story. But
it's also just, are you willing to take the risk?
Yeah, I have friends that live right next to me, and they don't go to my school. It's just like, what are you doing here? I have a bunch of friends from my hometown that moved down to San Diego, and they just got a job down here, not doing any school or anything. It's just like, okay, do that. Like that's great for you. Honestly, you've probably learned a lot doing that.
Oh, it's so true.
Yeah.
All right, I do need to ask you about the Skydive license. Do you recommend it?
Whenever I talk about it to anyone, I just say you have to do it. If that's even something that you're remotely interested in, you have to do it then. That's one of the best things that I've done all year. Like easily. I spent way too much money doing that. Like I can't afford that by any means, but just the feeling of being able to do that and just letting go of everything. Like you're one of our instructors when we were learning how to skydive basically told us, he's like, every time that you skydive, you're committing suicide, but you're basically ending that act by pulling your parachute. And it's just like that adrenaline rush. That sounds like such a bad thing to say, of basically jumping out of a plane and killing yourself. Like
that's funny.
That's just like one of the coolest things that you can do. And it's a natural feeling too. Like you're not taking drugs and getting some boost of dopamine that's unnatural. I mean, not to say that jumping out of a plane is natural, but
well, dude, I can like tie this back to everything we've been talking about. So I've only skydived once. I went on my 21st birthday. It was friggin' amazing. But again, like you talk about it and you're like, I spent way too much. And what we just talked about, how do you find adventurous friends? You be an adventurous person. And so it's like, on the surface level, it looks like a bad investment because it's like, oh my gosh, I spent $3,000 so that every once in a while I can jump out of a plane.
Yeah.
But in reality, it might be profitable for you because the type of people you're meeting when you jump out of a plane, you're meeting other people who have their skydive license.
Yeah.
So you talk about like, how do I meet adventurous people? Be an adventurous person.
Exactly.
You're going to meet people there, and the footage that's going to go online and that's going to connect you with other people could be worth like hundreds of thousands of dollars in the long run. But you don't think of it when you first.
And that was the mentality that I had when I decided to get my license. I knew I couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
It's like, why am I honestly doing this? But I just kind of trusted myself that somewhere along the line doing this, I'm going to meet some person that will connect me to another person, that will get me some job opportunity that, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just kind of trusted myself on that, where I would somehow be able to benefit from this. Because it's just like, it's a struggle every time that I go. It's like, I should not be doing this, but it's very fun, and I just kind of assume that there's something that I'm going to get out of it.
And like, back to the point of like, joy affects your productivity. So if you're super happy that you have a skydive license and that pours into your work, then that's big. I know you went skydiving with Lucas. He's like one of my best friends.
Yeah. I just told him, because I went with him last week, and I was telling him that I was going to be doing this podcast, and he was like, oh, no way.
Yeah.
Like,
he was my first guest.
Oh, he was your first one?
Number one, yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, Lucas is a great guy.
Yeah, when I first met Lucas, one of our mutual friends was like, oh, that's Lucas over there, like, he's about to get his skydiving license. This was right after I'd gotten mine, and I was like, oh, no way, like, I gotta talk to this dude. And then, I ended up being great friends with him. I mean, I've only known him for probably less than 6 months, but now we've gone jumping out of planes together multiple times, and it was just like a great connection out of nowhere.
So I will ask you my outro question now, which is, from the perspective of soul wealth, your deathbed, when you die, what do you want people to say about you?
Man, that's a cool guy.
No. He was sick.
No.
Honestly,
that's hard. I would say that being able to inspire people is basically why I do what I do. And if I'm able to make an impact on people where it changes their life and changes the way that they live, that will leave me content. On my deathbed, if someone tells me that I was able to change them for the better, so be it. I'm ready to go. Like,
let's go, bro.
Yep.
Good podcast.
That was a great one, dude. Thank you for having me on.
Can you do something for me real quick, which is just sit there so I can get some thumbnail. I'm gonna take some with my iPhone, actually. Shoot.